Hi, it's Anthony here. Thank you for joining me for my fourth breakdown video. If you haven't watched my previous tutorials, please do so first and then come back to this one. Now, a few words about street epistemology. While it's not always about faith, it is always about examining beliefs. You'll also want to use these tutorials as a sketch or an outline of how to proceed. You'll want to find your own voice and then work that in. I'd also recommend experimenting. In the conversation coming up, I experiment with something and it doesn't go quite right, but it didn't blow up in my face and I end up learning something from it, and that's a good thing. Finally, if you can't empathize with somebody, or you're more interested in a debate than a discussion, or perhaps you're recently deconverting from a religion and you're in that angry atheist phase, I would suggest holding off on conducting street epistemology. You have to remember, it's always about the interlocutor. With that being said, let's get to it.
I'm gonna walk.
All right.
I'll be here. No, that's intimidating.
That'll make her more nervous.
No, but it's just weird.
This is actually good with the tree behind you. What is your name?
Oh, we started already?
No, we'll wait.
Okay.
Your name's
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Anthony.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
Was managing a booth for the Muslim Student Association. It was Women's Week, so we had already established a rapport before this interview. Now her friend asks to observe the conversation, and I'm really glad that objected to it. I've found that observers usually can't resist becoming a part of the conversation, and before you know it, you're interviewing somebody completely different, so that worked out well. You also want to try to avoid discussing politics if at all possible. Now this conversation was intended to go for 5 minutes, but it goes for about 20. So I've edited it down for the purposes of this breakdown video. You'll find the link to the complete unedited video in the description field below.
So I've started a little clock here. I want to try to keep it to 5 minutes, but if it goes longer, that's fine.
Alright.
Obviously you're Muslim.
Yes.
Where are you on the strength of your belief? If 0% was I don't believe and 100% was I absolutely believe, where would you put yourself?
I guess I would put myself, 0 to 100?
If your conversation partner asks for clarification, be willing to give it. You also want to try to create an environment so that both parties are open to learning. If or anyone else for that matter is correct, I would like to discover that.
Yeah, 0 is I don't believe in Allah, and 100% was I absolutely believe in Allah.
I would say 100%.
Wow, that's way up there. What is putting you so high on the scale? How are you getting to the 100% mark?
Honestly, just true belief in him, and I guess I kind of experienced things in my life to where I had nothing, and when I turned to him, he was there for me, you know?
Okay.
So, in every aspect of my life, I know that he's always going to be there, and he's always going to help me out, and he's, you know, and anything I do, I trust in him completely, to where I know that anything that he does for me is going to be the best for me, you know. So.
I see.
We've clarified the belief scale, and is now explaining how she arrived at her belief. I used the words "I see" to acknowledge that I've understood what she was just saying. This would have been a good point to discuss honesty and the importance of honesty, but I forget.
How did you know or learn about this God rather than all the other, you know, there's like lots of other gods that are out there. There's Christian God, there's the Hindu gods.
Yeah.
I know that you're saying that when you go through hard times, you're turning to this God.
Yeah.
How did you know to turn to that God in the first place?
I guess I was brought up Muslim, you know.
Okay.
I was born Muslim, and my mom has been a really big, like, someone who brought me to Allah. But I've researched about other religions, you know, especially my high school time. I did projects on how religion affects psychology, and that was actually my graduating. That's what I did my project on.
Interesting. What was the conclusion? What did you arrive at there?
Well, the thing is that whatever you're raised with, that's what you believe in.
That was interesting. And notice how I jumped right to the conclusion of her study rather than belabor the point. Next, I want to understand how experience with Islam is any different than the conclusion of her thesis. Notice that she takes a step back.
Most people, however they grow up, that's what normally they believe in.
And yet here you are being raised as Muslim,
Yeah.
and you're still a Muslim.
Yeah.
Where is that any different? How is your story different than the typical one?
So there was a time where I didn't really believe in Allah. It didn't really interest me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I started researching other religions. I researched Christianity, Judaism, and honestly, none of them made sense to me.
That's a brave admission, and I should have commended. We end up talking about honesty further on in the discussion, but I should have introduced it here.
Nothing added up, and I even a lot of my friends were Catholic, and so they would tell me, you know, this, but I never got the concept of, you know, Jesus being God, you know, or that type of stuff. So whatever, this Islam made a lot of sense because it's just, you're praying to one Allah and He's always there, and there's no other one, you know. God is not divided into different, you know, sects or anything, you know, so it's just one.
Other religions don't make sense to her, but Islam makes sense to so she believes it. Now, also studied other religions, but I want to understand her methodology. Listen also for my very next question.
Just so I understand, are you saying that as you were going through and looking at all these different other religions, they didn't make sense? Was it sort of a process of elimination that you started just checking these things off the list, these other different religions, and you ended up with the same one that you were raised with?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
You know, kind of like that, yeah. Obviously, when you're not, you don't believe that much, you know, like you don't believe in something that much, you start looking for other things.
Spends a bit more time explaining that she was not always at the 100% mark. Notice how I'm summarizing her words. I want to understand what moved from near non-belief all the way to the 100% mark.
And I was looking, and honestly, I was never like this. You know, I never even thought about religion that much. Yes, my mom raised us to a Muslim. She would be like, oh, you know, recite this, or you know, blah blah blah. But it was all in Arabic. You know? And I'm Pakistani. Well, my mom would read the translation, blah blah blah. But I never understood it well. But in my mind, something just, I always had, like, you know, something to lean back on. You know?
Are you saying that? I know you're at the 100% mark now.
Yeah.
We're at 5 minutes.
Okay.
Was there a point where you were at 50%, at 0%?
Yeah.
Like, how recently did you become firm on the 100%?
Okay, so middle school.
7th and 8th grade-ish?
7th, 8th grade-ish.
Okay.
Maybe it was 50%, so like 75%, like that, you know?
Okay.
Like, I believed, and I trusted in God, but yeah, again, I would just question myself. And I guess it's kind of the age, teenage age, you question yourself a lot, you know?
Right.
But then when I went to high school, and I guess, when I went to high school, 11th, 12th grade, that's when I started researching and things started making sense. Like, my belief became it started making more sense to me.
Moved to 100% after researching other religions. Now, that's still pretty vague, and I still don't understand how she's concluded that Islam makes sense. Now, when reveals a personal story about her health, I should have said, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, like,
what was it about Islam in particular that made the most sense for you to get to the point to say, you know what, I can't be at 50% anymore. I'm going all the way to the 100%, and I know that I was raised in it, but this goes far beyond that. What was the thing that convinced you that what you're believing in is actually true to get you to the 100% mark?
Well, okay, I guess other things kind of influenced a little bit too. Like I was just going through a really hard time because of my health, and you know, like everybody would just be like, turn back to God, turn back to God, turn back to God, you know. And once I actually did, like I prayed, you know, I listened to the Quran recitation,
Okay.
the translations, everything. I just became closer to Allah, and I started loving Allah because I knew that He was there for me when no one else was, you know. And when you love someone so much, you just want to please them, you know, at anything that you can do.
Islam makes sense to after she was urged to come back to it by family and friends. Now I wish that we had spent more time on that. Does she believe because she feels that she has a duty to her culture or family or friends? Does her duty make the belief true? Does she enjoy her culture more than her religion? Those are all great questions, but I just didn't think of them at the time.
You know, so when I started looking into my religion more, I found out the hijab. I found out about, like, you know, praying out of just like what is mandatory and stuff like that. So then I started, you know, I started wearing hijab. Well, I used to wear the hijab before, but you know, I was just wearing it just to wear it.
I got you.
Saying "I got you" is a good way to say that you understand. Don't forget to summarize frequently. And notice the correct me if I'm wrong here, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. And then later on I say, is that right? These are all questions and sentences designed to demonstrate that I truly want to understand, and I don't want to misrepresent.
You didn't really, you weren't so tied to the belief of it at that point?
Yeah.
So you were sick and then you really started studying it?
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of maybe,
No, it's okay.
correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No.
So you were going through some hard times, you were sick, you started turning to this one book and it really started changing your views on things,
Yeah.
is that right? Not that we would want you to get sick and go back in time and have that happen, but let's say that you were being raised in a completely different family that were Hindus. They were convinced that Krishna is the one true God. And you were being sick and you weren't sure where to turn, and you dusted off that book that was on your shelf and you started really investigating about Krishna.
Yeah. Do I think that I would?
Do you think that you would have more gravitated towards that God rather than this God that you're following now?
I don't know. That's a really hard question to answer, but I don't know. That is something good to think about.
You can see that I'm really thinking about it. I don't think I'll ever use Jesus as a counterexample with a Hindu or a Muslim again. You want to identify those points of self-reflection and then hone in on that. I interrupt here next to stay on track and drive home the point.
I don't know. I mentioned before that I was studying, you know, maybe that...
You would have had that book
influenced me.
on your shelf probably.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think if you just by chance had grabbed that other book and really started committing yourself to Krishna,
Yeah.
do you think that you might be out here representing a booth for a Hindu?
I don't think so, because polytheistic religions never made sense to me anyways.
Polytheistic religions don't make sense to me, but if she had been raised Hindu, would it? Now, I should have paid more attention to here, as it would have affected the way that I word this example.
Is that it for you? The religion has to make sense in some way
Yeah,
for you to
I
accept
mean,
it?
Honestly, if it doesn't make sense to you, then you're probably not going to believe in it as truly. When you know that everything is, you know, I don't know, when you know that things are making sense in your head, then you have more belief.
Watch for nonverbal cues. Although interpretation is unreliable, it's fascinating to observe. Notice leg move, her arms cross, and she steps back.
Could you conceive of a possibility that, you know, you're kind of sick, things aren't going well, you reach for this book, you start learning about Krishna, and you really decide to open yourself up to it and really say, you know what, this one really does make a lot of sense, and it's been around for a long time, and I could see this God working in my life.
Yeah.
is it possible, all things being the same, except this one thing where you started investigating it and finding that something was actually true in a completely different religion?
Yeah.
Could you find yourself gravitating towards a different God?
I actually don't know. I don't know if that would be the case. I don't know. But I'm glad that I did it because I love Islam now, and I love the way everything is.
Amazing body language there, and that could have been impacted by having observers. Notice also the multiple I don't knows in there as well.
And honestly, I have like 45-minute long conversations with people that are trying to convince me to convert to Christianity, you know? And the thing is that when they talk to me, I'm just like, I really don't feel like you're even listening to yourself, you know, because it just, does it add up?
As I mentioned before, I'm constantly trying to improve and experiment. And I suddenly realized that I forgot to mention the importance of honesty, so I try to work that in here. See if you can notice what I failed to include in my speech.
And just to be clear, I'm not coming from that angle at all. I'm sincerely interested in how you arrived at your belief. I truly want to understand it.
Yeah.
Anything that I can do to make you more comfortable and more honest and open so that I can better understand it, I would like to try to do that. Okay? And if there's anything that I can say to be honest or demonstrate that I'm trying to be sincere with you, I would like to reciprocate. I think it's very important that, especially on a topic like this, that we be honest with each other.
Yeah.
I think honesty is really so important.
Yeah.
I didn't acknowledge for being honest. By leaving out that crucial part, I may have given her the impression that I didn't think that she was being truthful, and that simply wasn't the case. This can be tricky stuff, and it's why you should practice and take notes.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really tell people that, but I wasn't religious before. You know, I didn't really care, like, and then like after going through some things, now I trust in Allah, like, you know, with my life, you know, like, I know that whatever He's gonna do, it's gonna be the best for me.
I'm still mad at myself that I didn't acknowledge honesty. In fact, another street epistemologist who watched this video pointed that out to me. It's a good example of why you should get involved with other street epistemology groups. Next, I introduce a woman who believes in Krishna, and I try to match the story of this hypothetical Hindu woman exactly with story. Notice how rocks a little bit and she steps back.
Let's say that there's a Hindu walking by and she just happens to get she hears, you know, that we're talking about Krishna, and she says, I was really raised in a Hindu environment and I was taught Krishna. I didn't really believe in it, but then I was sick and I grabbed this book and I really started investigating it, and it makes tremendous sense to me. I get a feeling of peace whenever I really study it, and I'm 100% sure that it's true. When I would look at her with Krishna and you with Allah, I would have no idea of who to decide who might be more correct in the belief.
I created hypothetical where I want to understand, help me understand, rather than what would we say to the Hindu woman to make her understand. I'm turning it around and I'm experimenting and I'm saying, what would you say to help me understand? I'm standing right in front of her, and perhaps that makes it a more powerful example.
Is there a tool that I might use to help determine that? Because I would want to believe, I would want to follow the person that was more correct, because I want to believe true things.
Yeah.
What might you say to that woman who's 100% convinced that Krishna is the right God? Even though we might both agree that she has a right to believe in that, give me a tool that I can use to decide who's more correct of the two of you.
I don't know, actually.
Now, it's tough to watch squirm, but this is a key point in the conversation. This is not a debate where I'm fighting for my own position. I really want to understand, so I rephrased the question to keep her on track.
To tell her to...
Even just to tell me, let's say that she's just as convinced. She looks at me just like she's sincere, she's honest, she really believes it as much as you believe it. I want to follow the right person. I want to follow the person that's more correct.
Yeah. Honestly, nothing's coming to my head. I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, I have to think about this. To tell you to believe in Allah.
We can even say, what might you suggest
Yeah.
to me to convince me that she's mistaken and you are correct?
Now that's a great exchange. She says, I have to think about this. Now, hasn't apparently studied Hinduism all that much, so it's throwing her off. But her understanding of those other religions is irrelevant. The talk is about if another religion could be true.
Okay, well, I don't know. With like a Hindu, it's different. Like, you can't really, like, you know. Well, I didn't really study Hinduism, Buddhism, all that. I studied more Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, because I was never interested in polytheistic. Like, I don't believe that there could be multiple gods.
If you haven't studied it as attentively as you have those other religions, is it possible that she could be correct and you could be mistaken?
No, because
It's not possible?
it's not possible because I just don't understand how it would work having so many gods, you know, like who do you turn to for like a specific thing?
Reminds me that she doesn't understand how polytheistic religions work, so I clumsily try to get her back on track.
You know, and
Let's just say that she pipes up and just gives 5 great reasons why believing in multiple gods is completely superior to believing in just one god.
yeah. Okay, well, the thing I believe is that if there are like so many gods, then if there's 5 people that become the president of the United States, you know, like they're all gonna have different views, they're all gonna have different ideas, and they're all gonna collide with each other, you know?
Okay.
They're all gonna want to do different things in this country, you know?
Intentionally or not builds a straw man, but that's a landmine and something that you should avoid. I narrow the focus to keep Krishna front and center and the example going. Watch me step back again.
So when there's 5 different gods, there's also 5
Okay.
people.
Well, from my understanding, Krishna is the main god. Like all the other Hindu gods fall under Krishna, and she's all with Krishna. Krishna's the main god. It's the one and only god. There are lesser gods, right? She's convinced. She's 100% on that scale.
Next, I want you to notice the good, long pause here. Notice how uses that silence to really think. These are so important, but still so very hard for me. I'm going to add a second timer so we can track the duration of the pause.
I want to follow the person that's the most correct.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you might be able to tell me to illustrate that maybe you're more correct than she?
Well, okay, so these are really troubling questions. How would I tell her that she's wrong? Honestly, I can't think of anything right now. I can't think of anything.
I will try to be out here tomorrow, and if you can think about it tonight.
Yeah.
During or after the conversation, note those pauses and then try to replicate what led up to those moments. Now, I never had anyone ask for a redo, but of course I want to meet with again. I also don't want to walk away feeling bad, so I attempt to give her a broader perspective of my goals.
Can I redo it?
I'll tell you what, I'll give you another chance. We'll meet again and we can have another conversation. But I would love it if we can build off of this existing one.
Yeah.
Would that be cool? And I'll give you, you'll get complete say and you can set me straight.
Yeah.
Okay? Do you want to phone a friend? You phone a friend. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
All right?
And I actually did meet 2 days later, but unfortunately, that footage was lost. I'll need to invest in a second camera to reduce the likelihood of that happening again. I'm hopeful that I'll run into again for a third conversation.
Because this is not like a gotcha situation. Like I said before, I want to have an open and honest conversation to understand how people like yourself, or Christians, or Hindus, I want to understand how they arrived at their belief. And if I could help you reflect on how you arrived at the belief, and you come away thinking about it a little bit more than maybe you have before, I would consider that a success.
All right,
Okay? So it's all cool on this end, and okay.
Yeah, let me just think about these questions, and maybe I can redo them.
This exchange went very well. Was honest and very open about her beliefs. And I think the Krishna example went extremely well. And again, always be open to your interlocutor's ideas. They just might teach you something. We'll definitely meet again. I'm going to try to be out here again tomorrow, and then probably even Thursday, and maybe Friday, because I think you guys are going to have a booth Friday too.
I don't know.
That's what someone was saying. Oh, he's climbing a tree. Oh boy, I should get this on camera. All right, you've been really great. Thank you. There's no wrong answer, and you did great. Seriously, you did wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I did great.
Thanks again for joining me for my 4th tutorial. Stick to this template and add your own style. I'm also looking for volunteers to add captions in other languages to my tutorials, so if you're interested in that, please contact me. Thank you again for watching, and all the best.